Hi everyone, this is Tanya Gibbs from Psycho Mom Scrapbooks and More, and today I'm going to show you how to make a spiral rose. And I love making these. There's a great way to use up some scrap. This particular rose was actually colored with the Ranger Adirondack color wash, and it was cranberry. So, the flower that I'm going to do right now, I'm going to use some stamp, but I'll show you how to use this technique as well. And I've made a couple of these now. This one was actually on hot pink cardstock, and this was the first one I made. You can see some holes in it, and I've kind of perfected it as I went. But what we're going to do today is I'm going to show you, you're going to take just a piece of cardstock, and it doesn't matter what size, the smaller the size, the smaller the rose. So if you want a really big, this one is about 4.5 by 4.5 square. So if you want a rose that's really big, then I would recommend using something a little bit bigger. But this 4.5 square is going to make a rose about this size. And just to give you an idea of the size, here's a ruler. It's roughly 1.5 inches wide. Just so you know, in diameter. Maybe it might be closer to 1.75 inches. So it's not a very big rose, but for me, scrapbooking, we don't really need a big rose. So let's get started on how to do this. First thing you're going to do is take your sheet of cardstock, and you're going to draw a spiral. And you don't have to be exact, but you want to make sure you start in the center. So if you want to, I'm going to eyeball it, but if you wanted to make sure for sure, then just measure it out. But you're just going to draw a very simple spiral. And I'm going to press kind of dark on this so you can see it on the video, but you want to make sure you press very lightly because you've got to erase that mark, and you don't want to have it show up in your rose. And you're going to go all the way to the edge. Now on your spiral, you want to make sure that you're leaving at least a significant amount of space between each one. That's going to be the depth of your rose. So since I'm putting this in scrapbook, I would almost say maybe 1/2 inch to 1/4 inch. It's 1/2 inch. So I want to keep it, just eyeballing it, because I want to keep it somewhat flat for my scrapbooks. I don't want it to poke up too much. But if you were doing something like a canvas, you might want it a little bit thicker. So once we have our spiral drawn, then we're going to take a pair of scissors, and you could use deco scissors if you wanted to, and you're going to start where the spiral ends here. You're going to start on the outside of the spiral, and you're going to cut in a wavy fashion. These are going to be the petals of your rose, so you want to make sure that you go kind of deep with it. Now I've already cut one out, so you don't have to sit and watch me do this. But if you look at this video here, you can tell I'm not being super neat with this. You don't have to be. Most of this is going to be coiled up, and you're not even going to see it. But you want to make sure you follow this kind of wavy pattern all the way to the end. And then when you get right here at this part of the spiral, oh, I need my nails done. But when you get to this part of the spiral right here, you're going to stop cutting about right here. You want this to be your platform, which I will show you here on the back of this. See, it's the part that you stick to the bottom. So I've already cut one out, and here it is. And if you notice all the way to the end, there's kind of a wavy cut. I freehand it. It's really rough, but everything in nature is like this. So I'm just running with it. Now at this point, if you want to stamp it, ink it, distress it, do whatever, then go ahead. This is plain cardstock, so I want to give it a little bit of life, and I'm going to use Tattered Rose as my color for the distressing ink. You can use any color you want at this point. So all I'm doing, and you don't have to be super careful, I'm just going to rub this around on the spiral. And I've also found with these inks, I like to leave it a little bit distressed looking, so I pick up some definition from the rest of it. And you, by all means, at this point, you could also run it through your Cuttlebug and emboss it. There's, anything you want to do to it while it's flat, go ahead and do it. Once it's coiled up, it's only going to hit the spots that it reaches, so it makes it very difficult to get some of those tighter spots. So once you're happy with the way it's distressed, and remember I did both sides on this one, you're going to take the bottom, the outside edge, and with a pencil or you know, I want a little bit thinner diameter in this, a paper piercer or anything. If you've got the quilling tool, then use that. But you're going to go ahead and you're going to bend it around. Now, if this, it's a little bit damp from the embossing ink, but if you're using a heavy cardstock and it hasn't been embossed, you may want to use some water and just spritz it. Hang on. Excuse me. You may want to just spritz it with water first to kind of loosen up the fibers on the cardstock. So what you're going to do is I'm going to take a little dab of glue. Now I use Eileen's tacky glue, but you could use glossy accents, any kind of glue you wanted to. But I take my tacky glue because it always seems to dry up on me, and I put it in a baby food jar so I can control how much I'm actually getting. And I put some glue on a toothpick, and as you can see, there is very little glue on this. So I'm going to take that toothpick and I'm going to put it right here and just kind of dab, and then I take my hand and pull it off. So it's sticky, but it's not super, it's tacky. It's not super wet. And you want to take your tool here and start curling it. Now you're going to curl towards the bottom of your design. So if this is pattern paper, you want to curl towards the bottom. And as you curl, you'll see the bud starting to form. You don't have to be exact, but it does need to be tight towards the center. Now as you get your bud going, right here, as you get your bud going, then you can start loosening up with how much you're, you know, don't use as much. And you're just going to keep spiraling it. All the way around. And like I said, keep it kind of loose when you get towards these outer buds, because that's where your flower is going to spread. And then when you get all the way to the bottom, you're just going to keep twisting. What I just did was I just added a little bit more glue to that center piece right there, so that as I tighten this up, it keeps it together. Now once you get to this bottom, you want to take some more glue and saturate the bottom of this really good. You gotta almost feel like you gotta have 4 fingers to do it, but you just want to saturate this bottom, and I'm putting it on and taking it off because I don't want it to be super wet. I just want it to be covered. And then you're just going to lay the bottom here. Now as you can tell, some of this on the outside has started to uncoil, and that is perfectly fine. You want it to sit there. You just want to make sure that you have enough coiled up in here in the center to where you have a bud. And it's going to take a minute to stick because it's wet. That's okay. You can use hot glue. I just don't like it. And I'm just going to hold this in place until it dries just a little bit. Right here. I want to keep this bud together right here. And as you can tell, you've already got your flower started. Now I'm going to kind of running out of time here, so as you can tell, we've got a flower going here, and we like it, and it's pretty, whatever. Here's one that has already dried. It's already had a chance to dry really good. So what I did was I took these edges and just started pinching them down all the way around, and I took it and put it in my hand and just kind of pressed it a little bit, and then came back and fluffed a little more until I had the desired look that I was after. And again, you can just keep taking your toothpicks or your piercing tool and continue to roll it around. And then once I was satisfied with the way it looked, I took some Glimmer mist that I made myself, which is actually just artistry metallic paint, and it's diluted in water. And I stuck it over into a box so that it wouldn't splatter. And this is, they make boxes, but this is a coffee pot box that I bought a coffee pot a few months ago, and that's the box from it. So I don't spend money on things I don't have to. And then I'm just gonna lightly mist it. And this is a gold color, so it's just gonna barely show up. And this rose is the tattered rose. And then there you go, there's your rose. I hope you enjoyed it.